If you think about what happened back in the 30s, what happened was the US government said, okay, regular people, you can't have gold anymore. We're going to buy it from you at 20 something dollars. And then when we get all that gold, oh, guess what? Now it's worth 35 bucks. That was their way of paying off the national debt. We're looking at a situation like that again. The debt is insurmountable. If I ever have kids, my great grandkids would never pay off that debt. We're going to have some kind of situation like what happened with the gold. The most important thing that anyone can do is
All right, welcome to the Bitcoin broadcast. Today we have on HODL Harmony. How are you doing today, man?
doing great. How's it going?
Good, good. How did you come up with that name?
Oh, that's funny. I was going to ask you how you came up with your name too, because I could have just as easily been HODL, Florida, since here we are both in Florida. Grok. Everything is grok lately. So I was, doing some planning for how to start this YouTube journey and came up with a couple different things. And I was like, hey, give me some names for ideas. And that was one of them. I was like, I really like that. That's a good one because it blends, my love of music and things like that, which we can get into.
Yeah, for sure. No, I just chose mine because I saw people doing of course, American HODL and other things. And I was like, yeah, I just moved to Florida, so I'll do HODL Florida, I guess. And it was available, so I just chose it. But
nice,
dude, tell me about your background, how you got into Bitcoin, what you were doing before, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, your name caught my attention on X, which is where we met. So I was just like, oh, well, I'm in Florida. And so I just kept, kind of following your stuff. And I was like, oh, let's, see if we can collaborate. And so thanks for having me on here. So yeah, if you would indulge me, I'll run through my little intro that I do on my videos, and that explains, it's like a snippet of like my journey and things like that. So I'll pretend I'm doing my show for just a second because it's been a while since I've done it. Why, hello there. Welcome to HODL Harmony, where the beat of the blockchain meets the rhythm of riches. Are you riding this crypto wave with me? I am Tom Durante, the maestro. I am a crypto enthusiast who got into this wild world back in 2020 with just a GPU mining rig and a burning passion for passive income with my background in music and my music in the background, which I'm not on my channel right now, otherwise there'd be music in the background. Think of it as a soundtrack to your hodling journey. A little bit about me. So I got a lot of music stuff going on. And then as I got into mining Bitcoin, I've always been into computers and building computers and stuff like that. So I was like, I can take my gaming computer and make money with it? Are you serious? And unfortunately, I guess as we all kind of do, I feel like I was a little bit late to the scene. But I think, 2020 will pan out to be a pretty decent time to get in. So yeah, I just kind of started from there and, went further down the road as it took me.
Nice. What were you doing before? Were you doing stocks, or was it just music and teaching, or what caught your eye about Bitcoin?
Okay. When basically going through school and things like that, getting out of high school, going into college, trying to figure out what you're going to do, music was kind of the thing to do for me. There was nothing that really spoke to me like music did. And so basically I was enabled to just kind of follow my path. And I'm, really thankful that my parents were supportive and things like that. I still got into loans and all that kind of stuff during college. But I was very grateful at the end of my journey to discover a trade. And so basically I went through school, got, my bachelor's degree, and then I went into trade school. And I got my certificate over here. I was trying to get some little things to show off. So this is from the Chicago School for Piano Technology. And that was one of my trainings. I did 2 years up there. And that basically enabled me at the age of 24 to be a business owner, to be a sole proprietor. Something my grandfather had always told me about, like get into business and things like that. He taught me how to play golf and that kind of stuff, being in Florida here. And, I never really thought much about it. I was like, oh, okay, business. Yeah, whatever. But then, actually walking the path and doing the journey, it was just like, this is the only way, but getting out of college, it's like 6 months after or 3 months after or something. It's like those bills start to come due. So you got to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to make money. And starting off as a entrepreneur, a piano technician at the age of 24, super slow, living at home with my parents, just doing my thing. And so riding that journey of just the, I guess, solopreneurship or whatever you want to call it. Um, Thankfully, with the support of my parents helping me out, my mom was just like, you need a full-time job. Go get a real job, for lack of a better term. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so she had a friend who was at a private school and they needed a music teacher. So that kind of got me in. I spent 5 years teaching private school music. And then COVID happened and threw a whole wrench into everybody's world, basically. And they let a lot of people go. And so that started my transition out of public school, or out of private school into public school. And so just being, like a W-2 wage earner, doing the thing, and then doing my business on the side, I had, I was making more money than I had ever made. So I was like, all right, what do I do with this? So kind of coming back into the investing world here. I was like, all right, so I'm making a steady income. I don't have bills. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. Like, what do I do with all this money? So that started my investing journey. And I got a lot into Robert Kiyosaki. I was sitting there when I wasn't teaching my class at the private school. They had me helping out and tutoring and things like that in this like tutoring environment. And so mostly I would sit there and wait for kids. And so I'd be sitting there reading books on my iPad or whatever. And that's how I started reading about Robert Kiyosaki, getting into not trading, but owning stocks and things like that, investing in silver and that sort of thing. So precious metals and stocks were kind of my first investment.
Nice. And then you found your way to Bitcoin eventually. Do you still hold gold and all that good stuff, or are you primarily Bitcoin these days?
Yeah, I do have, I'm diversified into a lot of things, or I guess as, what was it, Mark Moss would say, diversified or whatever. Look, I got some copper right here. It's a little good luck token. So this is just raw copper, but I think if I were to quantify how much gold I have, it would probably be the size of my thumb. It's not a whole lot, but I do have silver. I had a friend who became a financial advisor, funnily enough, and he was like, all right, I got this guy who's, you want to get into metals? Okay, I got a metal guy for you, basically. That's kind of what those financial advisors are good for. It's like they got a guy, for everybody. And so he was like, all right, let me put you in touch with this guy, see what he thinks. Everybody says, oh, gold, gold's the biggest one. So you're like, oh yeah, gold. Okay. So I asked him, I was like, all right, so I want to get into gold. I don't have a lot of money. What should I do? He goes, okay, so pull up the chart for gold and pull up the chart for silver and see, just kind of look at them. And that's, just kind of stepping back for a minute. That's a good first thing was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? First step, research, just start learning, look at the chart. Don't buy anything, look at it and learn about it. And I think that is a good, something to kind of cross over into the Bitcoin world because it's just an investment, but you still have to learn about it. And so
Yeah,
when I started
absolutely.
looking at that, he was like, all right, so the percentage gains of gold versus the percentage gains of silver outperforms it like crazy. And it's more attainable for the everyday person. At that time it was like, I think I was buying at 14 an ounce for silver, which is looking pretty good right about now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, once you start going down into the investing world, uh, I mean, it it becomes pretty apparent to me, at least hindsight, that Bitcoin was easily my best investment. I never bought gold, never bought silver, anything like that. I bought stocks back in the day, and I was not good at it. I was trying to day trade, harder than it looks, but it is what it is. It's all fun.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Bitcoin mining. So do you still Bitcoin mine?
Yes, absolutely. Over on this side of my desk, I have a little, like a second camera that I have. And in that view, there is a BitAxe, not a BitAxe, it's a Nerd QX, which is basically the same as a BitAxe. It's just a little bit bigger. So this thing gets about 3 terahash. And that's, on the scale of mining, that's infinitesimally small. But it's a solo miner. And on one of your other podcasts, you were talking to somebody about the difference between like a node and a miner and things like that. And I've run a couple of nodes. I've gotten into a whole lot of that stuff. And like I said in my little intro, I got into this world through GPU mining. And so obviously I was into Ethereum and things like that. I was mining Ethereum and then trading it for Bitcoin because Bitcoin's number one. There is no second best, as they say. And so basically this right here, this little Raspberry Pi was one of my first nodes. This is a Raspberry Pi 4, so it's a little bit too old to run a node right now. It's only got 4 gigabytes of processing power. And so it's just, or of RAM. And so it's just not as powerful as, the blockchain keeps getting bigger and things like that. So going from GPU mining and doing that, building different computers and things like that, and then starting to see these little mining devices come out, like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Let me learn more about this. Like we said, research, research first. And so basically chasing a block, that's kind of the goal. When I first got into Bitcoin, I think the reward for the block was something like 6.25 or something like that. And so now it's half of that, 3.125. But, the longer we go, the less that gets, but the more the price of Bitcoin goes. So it's a lucrative thing, even if you have to throw a little bit of capital at it. If you get that reward, that's going to be life-changing no matter when it happens,
Yeah, it's like winning a small lottery ticket. So I currently am not mining. I probably will get like a BitX at some point. Can you tell me the difference between like running like an ASIC or like you said GPU mining? I am completely oblivious to a lot of this stuff. Can you explain the difference and how that works?
Absolutely. I mean, grab a little prop.
Okay.
When I was in college, I took a speech class, and the teacher commented, it was like, you always have visual stuff. You're like always showing off little things like show and tell. So this is the hashing board from basically a BitAxe. I like the Nerd Axes. They're both open source, but it's basically the same thing. So that little guy right there is your mining chip, and that's just one. And so when it was running, this was getting about 1.2 terahash. So that's, like you said, the BitAxe. This is what, obviously it doesn't have the heatsink or anything like that. So this is essentially an ASIC miner. So the big ASIC miners just have a whole bunch of those chips, like a board full of those chips. At some point, because I am kind of technical, I wanted to get into ASIC repair and things like that. But that'll be another story for another day if I ever wind up getting into that. So when Bitcoin was first starting to be used, you could just mine it on a regular computer using a CPU. And CPUs are really good for general processing. And so they can do, random math. They can load up a program, a basic program and things like that. But as far as like super powerful, they're not really that. That's where the GPUs come in. So back, you remember hearing about Bitcoin Pizza Day? The guy who bought that pizza, from what I understand, Satoshi actually reached out to him because he was one of the first people to discover, hey, I can use my GPU instead of my CPU. And so he was making Bitcoin hand over fist at that time. Imagine at the time when everybody else is walking and you got a bike, like, oh man, you're going places. So Satoshi actually reached out to him and was like, all right, instead of stockpiling all this Bitcoin, how about we, stimulate the economy and start spending it? And so that's, from what I understand, that's the way that it happened. It was like, okay, start spending this stuff instead of just sitting on it. And so he posted in a forum and said, hey, I got a bunch of Bitcoin. I want a pizza. I don't care if you make it. I don't know if you read that original post, but it was interesting. It was like, I don't care if you make it. I don't care if you get it delivered. It's just like, I got a Bitcoin and I want pizza. Let's make this happen. And so that's just a beautiful way, just the early internet was just such a different place than it is now. So tying back into that, you started with just a regular computer. When I got in 2020, I was mining Ethereum. I wasn't making much. I think over the course of the year, I maybe made 70, $80 or something like that. But as things progressed and basically the difficulty of Bitcoin gets higher and higher, the more hashing power that's on there. So, if I had one of these back in 2009, I would have ran the show. I've been like the Bitcoin pizza guy. I'd have been making Bitcoin hand over fist, even with just 1.1 terahash. So obviously, the more terahash, the more likely you are to get a block. It's just kind of like more firepower, to work with, the better chance you have. And so, these things are inexpensive, but their chances of getting a block are really small. But I think comparing the odds of getting a block with one of these to winning the lottery, like the Powerball or whatever, this is much more likely to happen. And so with these little
No,
guys,
that's
you're not
sweet.
really going to do much. And there's two different ways of mining. And so you get paid either per share or per block. And so if you get paid per share, you're basically just trading your electricity for a paycheck. And if I were to do that with this, I would maybe get 2 to 5 cents a day, something like that, maybe 10 cents, something like that paid out. So it's not really lucrative for me to do, pay per share. But on a bigger machine, I have a couple out in my garage. I've actually turned them off since because my power bill started catching up with how much power I was using. So I was like, oh, this is not not attainable. And I didn't want to sell the Bitcoin to pay the power bill. So I was just like, I'm going to turn these off. But those guys are honking big, loud. They use like 3,000 watts. Those, in comparison, this is 1 terahash. Those get an average of 94. And so they use up a ton of power. They're actually last generation efficiency. So they're not that efficient compared to what's out there now. To compare, I got a Avalon Q, which is in the same line as these newer ones. It's a lot more efficient. It's Q for quiet. It uses half of the power as those big machines, and it still gets 94 terahash. So the pay per share there is closer to $5 a day, which is a little bit better. Yeah, just basically to sum up, you either get paid per share or you get paid per block. And if you're getting paid per block, you're paying for the power with no guarantee of any reward.
No, that's a fascinating. I did not know that Satoshi reached out to the pizza guy and told him to start spending. That's a new one to me. I did not know that. But
Yeah.
that's kind of cool because that's one of like the big aspects of Bitcoin that's, controversial is Bitcoin money. And if you can use it as money as he did back then, I mean that's the end goal, right? We want Bitcoin to be money for us. So can we talk about financial literacy these days? Because most people, I don't even think understand what money is. How would you describe what money is?
Ooh, that's a great one. There's all kinds of books that can help. Usually I have stuff in arm's reach, but over there I have the Bitcoin Standard. Yeah, the Bitcoin Standard. That book definitely opened my eyes. The beginning of that book is really interesting on how they describe how money came around, or like you said, what is currency? What is money? And there was a cool example of, I want to say I may be getting this wrong, but the Maori stones or something like that, where it was like these big gigantic stones, and that was the money. But obviously you didn't move the stones around. It was just like, okay, I want to pay you. All right, the stone's yours now. So that's kind of just a way to transfer value, or to say, okay, this is what value is, and you have it now. I had it before, or whatever. Just some way to verify that. So I think that's kind of like that's what money is. Excuse me. You just holding on to value over time, and what's the best way to do that? There's been a lot of approaches over the years. And so I think, as we got closer to Bitcoin, it was just more and more necessary. If you think about like what happened back in the 30s, I just saw something that refreshed the numbers in my head for that event. Basically, what happened was the U.S. government said, okay, regular people, you can't have gold anymore. We're going to buy it from you at 20 something dollars. And then what we're going to actually do is when we get all that gold, we're going to revalue it. Instead of 20 bucks, oh, guess what? Now it's worth 35 bucks. And so that was their way of paying off the debt, the national debt. So we're looking at a situation like that again, basically. The debt is insurmountable. There's no chance that, if I ever have kids, my great grandkids would never pay off that debt if we started, trying to pay that down. So we're going to have some kind of situation like that, like what happened with the gold. We're going to probably, if I were to just guess, we would, buy some Bitcoin, revalue it, and then, use that to pay off the debt, something like that. It would, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. And that's definitely one way that could work. But yeah, in general, just money is, how to preserve your time in the future. And I think Bitcoin's probably the best way to do it now that we have it.
Yeah, well, and you brought up the government, asking or telling people to, basically give them their gold. And Bitcoin, it has a nice little feature in it that allows you to not do that. Can you talk about the importance of self-custody with Bitcoin? Because without self-custody, you're just holding it on an exchange. It's not your Bitcoin, not your keys, not your coins, all that good stuff. And something like a Bitcoin taking those coins is feasible without self-custody. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anything that you hold on Coinbase is not yours. Anything you hold, I think on Robinhood, I did see something, somebody said you can remove it off of Robinhood. I'm not sure. I got off of Robinhood. Going back to our stocks discussion, when I think it was during the crash during 2020, everything started crashing and things like that. And then, they put these stops in the market. And so everything trading kind of halted and things like that. I'm not sure if it was the same day or something like that, but when things were falling, you want to go on Robinhood and make a deal or buy a dip or something like that. And they stopped it. They were like, no, you can't spend your money. What kind of a free market is it if you're telling people, oh, you can't spend your money or you can't sell it or whatever? It's like, these are my assets, right? Are they mine or are they not mine? So if I can't sell my stuff, then what kind of a market is this? So that self-custody is incredibly important. That's something I preach on my channel a lot. I remember when I was first getting started, I had one person in my chat, just pretty consistently. And so I was like, you know what? I'm like your own personal YouTuber here. What do you want to learn about? And so I went on and showed him how to set up a Sparrow wallet. A Sparrow wallet is on your computer, but it can be a cold wallet. You can run it offline, and then when you need to send transactions, you can go online. So I think the key, the trilemma, or not the trilemma, but the trifecta of good Bitcoin practice is holding your own keys. And I'm holding this is a little piece of titanium here, and it's got these little grids numbered 1 through 24. And so what you do, you get a little engraving pen, and you can write your seed phrase in here. So it's going to be a set of 24, maybe 25 words if you have a password on it. And this is your password to your Bitcoin. And my shirt says, HODL Bitcoin, be your own bank. Right? I don't know if you can't see the bottom there, but be your own bank. That's the whole point. So if you hold your keys, and if you run your own node, and if you run your own miner, you want to send a transaction. Okay, cool. Let's say I want to send you 50 bucks or something, right? So I put in your address on here. I run the transaction through my own personal node. I don't have to trust anybody, right? I can guarantee that it's going to be secure. And then my miner, which is attached to my node, will verify that transaction. And so that is the key right there. These three things are the key to being a self-sovereign Bitcoiner, right? So this right here, that's the most important one. You can do without these two if you're not really going to move things around or things like that. But like these three here, that's like, the Wonder Twins activating.
No, that was awesome. That's a great explanation. Just a simple way for someone to comprehend how they can be their own bank, be self-sovereign. Because it is complex to most of us. I think we overcomplicate it on a lot of aspects. So putting it down into those three easy steps, I think that will help out for people to understand that. But so to getting Bitcoin though, what would you advise, do you think, without financial advice, obviously, what would be your best way to accumulating Bitcoin? People like to smash buy. They lump sum in. That's what I used to do. I used to buy every time I would, I would save up a couple $1,000s and hope for a crash. If it came, I would smash buy, whatever, $2,000. And but now I've switched to more of a DCA where I slowly purchase. I set weekly purchases, and I just accumulate slowly this way. What what kind of accumulation do you do? What kind of how would you suggest people should go about this? And once you have all these things, you need a way to accumulate it. So what's your best strategy?
Great question. A great, great topic of discussion, of course. I, from what I understand, there's not a whole lot of difference. I've seen a lot of videos about this. I watch, part of being in the Bitcoin space, like I said, again, back to the beginning, is doing your research. And of course, we can't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, although I do want to become one just so I can say this is financial advice. But that's, later. But this, of course, is not. But we can't give financial advice, but I can tell you what I do, of course. And so what I've done in the past, like you said, you kind of get excited. You're like, ooh, the price is, let's just say 20,000 or whatever. Ooh, let me buy some more. So yeah, smash buying, obviously great. From what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of difference between big purchases during big pullbacks and dollar cost averaging. Although I am a huge proponent of the dollar cost averaging, I spent the better part of 3 years during the last bear market, $5 a day. And basically what I did to tie it into the Bitcoin mining, I was buying Bitcoin on Coinbase, I believe, $5 a day. And so part of that $5 was $1 fee going to Coinbase. So I was like, okay, well, there's $365 that I just gave to Coinbase or whatever. How can I avoid that? And so I, looking at something people may not be too keen on is when you go and you smash buy or you hit buy, just whenever you buy, there is a spread on the price. So you need to look at that. I hear a lot of people talking about, I think it's River. I haven't been on there yet. Did I see a post? Did you start doing River?
I
Or was that
use
somebody else?
Strike primarily.
Maybe that's what I'm
So
thinking of.
River and Strike are really similar. I
Okay.
have used River. I do hold Bitcoin on River. It's a very small amount. But my primary is Strike because the fees are very low, the spread is really good, and it's very, very simple. And to send Bitcoin off of Strike is essentially free.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's what I need to learn a little bit more about. Because my journey, I was looking at that spread on Coinbase and it's a little extreme. Some cases a couple $1,000s between, you're like, ooh, the price is 106. Let me grab it. Oh, what? I can't buy it for less than 110? What do you mean? So, just looking at the difference between that, it kind of led me to look other places and I didn't really find much, but I didn't know about Strike or River. So I'll have to check those out. Most exchanges that I use Uphold. Uphold is pretty good. Basically, they are audited or whatever, and they verify that all of your assets are backed up 1-to-1. So I really like the way that they do things. Although during this most recent crash, I went on there to buy some assets and I was blocked. And that, like I said, that Robinhood that hit me the wrong way when I couldn't sell or buy or whatever. So it just hits me the wrong way when a exchange does that. I understand that they have to kind of protect, their behind, but it just doesn't hit me the right way. So I typically don't like that. But Uphold, other than that, has been pretty good. And the cool thing about Uphold is you can trade anything for anything. So I stopped buying physical silver because then, oh, you got to sell it and ship it and all this stuff. And you can buy silver and you can buy foreign exchange currencies. You can buy all kinds of cryptos on Uphold. So I've been doing a lot of that. But of course, Coinbase, crypto.com, and then just like decentralized exchanges and things like that. But yeah, self custody is absolutely the way. If you are buying on Coinbase, and like I was doing, DCAing $5 a day, I'm not going to keep that on Coinbase. I'm going to take it off of Coinbase, put it on my self custody wallet. And just a note about wallets, you can set up a Sparrow wallet. And as long as you save your password, you'll be fine. But if you want to add another layer of security, I'm not too much into the ledgers or the Trezors or things like that. There's been some things that kind of hit me the wrong way with them. I've been on a little bit of a journey for hardware wallets. And so I started off, the Keep Key was my first one. And then I got a BC Vault. That one is made in Europe. And now I have landed on the Cold Card. And that is like the gold standard of hardware wallets. Super secure. There's like every aspect of it has some kind of safety built into it. And it's super secure. So I trust Cold Card 100%. That's where I have my biggest HODL bag is just kind of stocked away. And going back to our little trifecta here, I use my own node to send and interact with that wallet. And that's the only way I've ever interacted with it. So that wallet's never been exposed to just anybody else's node. So it's very secure, it's very private, and it's all mine. It's all self-sovereign.
That's
And
awesome. Go ahead.
yeah, just to finish a thought I had earlier, the DCAing, I was sending $1 to Coinbase every time I bought that. So I did some math, and it was actually cheaper for me to mine the Bitcoin. If I'm getting $5 a day and it's costing me $4 a day, well, guess what? That's still costing me $1, but I only have to pay the power company once a month. Coinbase, I have to pay every day.
Yeah, Cold Card. No, I do not have a Cold Card, and that is one that I want to get. Because like as you said, it's like the gold standard for Bitcoin, in terms of security. And I just have not done that, but that is on my list of things to do. And
Yeah, get on that as soon as
absolutely,
you can. Yeah.
yeah,
There are so many ways that people are trying to take your money, and it's not fair. My mom was a victim of a scam. I talked about it on my channel when it happened. It's despicable what people will do. She lost over $20,000 and literally took it out of the bank in cash and handed it to a person, like legit. And she was under the influence of this person's words saying, "Oh, I'm an FBI agent. You can trust me, blah, blah, blah." And she literally took all her money out and handed it to a guy. And there's most likely no chance she's ever going to see that money again. So you have got to be secure with your money. And that literally just happened a month ago. So we're still kind of like, oh man. So it just really, really puts a fine point on, you really need to be secure. Even if you hold money in a bank and you think it's secure, somebody can call you up and convince you that you should give them all your money. And, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, she fell for it, but you got to be safe with your stuff, especially if it's, stuff that you're holding on to, you're counting on for retirement, hoping that it'll blow up in price and things like that.
dang, that's wild. I've never heard of that kind of scam. I mean, most scams are online these days, but like an in-person scam still happening today? That's wild. Oh
Yeah.
my
And I told her,
goodness.
I
I'm
mean, my
sorry to
parents
hear
are,
that.
yeah, it sucks. My parents are getting older, they're in their 70s, and I was like, it's not going to get any easier. This is not getting any easier the older y'all get. And it's like, I told them about like how they can impersonate people and things like that. I'll be like, it'll sound like me on the phone. You make sure you call me and make sure that it's me in trouble and need money, because it may not be me. This AI stuff is crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely do research. Do research on what exchange you want to use. Don't use any of those foreign exchanges that, you know, promise you the best of this, the best of that. You can buy all these ridiculous shit coins. Do your research on the exchanges. You want to get a good rate. You don't want to be paying them $1 every $5. That's insane. Um, I mean, Strike and River have been absolutely amazing for that. You can set a DCA if you're worried about the price, and then you don't have to worry about it. Um, but you did bring up this most recent crash. Have you how are you thinking about that? Did you survive the big crash of 2025?
Well, we definitely, like somebody posted, we've earned our wings this cycle, that's for sure. Yeah, I noticed something in the document that we collaborated here for our talking points. There was something about, let me see here, and I do want to circle back to financial literacy in a minute. But let's see, we're talking about, okay, so underneath the financial literacy point, you have importance of avoiding leverage. Now, with this latest crash, the latest crash
Yes.
that happened, from what I understand, was a liquidity squeeze or something to that effect, basically wiping out a whole bunch, and it was like the largest in crypto history liquidation event. And so so it says here importance of avoiding leverage. Now, okay, it is a strategy. So if people want to trade, that's fine. I'm not a trader, not a big trader, but I do trade and I do use leverage responsibly. I have a couple of trades that are over 25x, but they're very small. I've been getting into leverage trading just to learn about it as another strategy for passive income, because as I say in my intro, I'm super passionate about passive income, and so this most recent crash was all about washing out long trades, and I had 4 trades open, and 3 of them got liquidated. And, I try to get in and open them again so I get a nice lower price point. The one that did not get liquidated, somehow I caught a bottom at, I think it was 20,000 when we started. It was in 2023, I believe, 2024, where I hit this entrance. I was trying to catch a bottom, and I got a bottom at like 20,000, and it has not gone down there since, which is great. So that trade is looking really good. That's the only one of my 4 trades that were open that did not get liquidated, because thankfully we didn't go down there. But if we did, maybe we'd all smash by if we were able to get that at that price.
Yeah. No, definitely. That was the biggest liquidation event. It was just a cascading of people with their leverage, and you hit one person's basic, the point where they have to sell, and then that drops it even lower, and it just kept happening. And it was something I heard, it was like, what, 1.3 million or something people got liquidated within 30 minutes or something. It was
Yeah, something
absolutely
crazy.
insane. Yeah. And I mean, to go back to your point, avoiding leverage, I have never used leverage. I've thought about it. I've wanted to. You hear about it. Opening a long interest at 20K right now seems pretty awesome if you could do it in hindsight. But for most people, I would say stay away from leverage because of events like just happened.
Yeah, it's
It only
definitely a
took
slippery slope.
Bitcoin dropping. Yeah, it only took Bitcoin dropping like 12%, and boom. Your money's gone. And I don't see how I could do that with my hard-earned money. I want my money secure. I want it safe. But where do you think, unless you wanted to keep talking about leverage or anything, I was going to move on a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, let me just put a button on that. Number one, most important thing for everyone to realize is you do not gamble with money that you need. Okay? You pay your bills, you do all your things, and you save. And if you still have money left over after that, play with it if you want. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do with their money. I'm here to share my story. I'm here to educate. I'm been a teacher for the last 11 years. I just quit. And that's another thing we want to talk about is people quitting jobs. But yeah, so please be responsible. Don't, and realize if you are in a bad spot. There was something I saw, I think it was on X. It was like a graphic of a down, a little person on a graph, and it was going down, and it was red, and it was bad. And then it zoomed out and it said, one bad day does not make a bad life. And so you just kind of have to remember that. Like if you, for lack of better words, I don't know if you want to censor this, but if you fucked up, it ain't the end of the world, right? You know, you can, one bad day does not ruin your life. You got a lot more to live for than, oops, guess what? It's just money. And that's the one thing, my mother is a freaking saint because she handed this guy $20,000 and, yeah, of course you're upset about it, but, life goes on. Life goes on. And my mother's very religious. So it was just like, it's in God's hands now. So, oops, whatever. It's just money. We still have our health. We still have our family. It's just money. So that's one thing to realize. Just take a step back. There are bigger things at play than your little HODL portfolio, because guess what? In the grand scheme of things, yeah, maybe $10,000 or $5,000 would fix your life, but it's not worth dying over or getting upset about or whatever. It's just money.
Amen. No, that was well said. And yeah, I'm religious too, believe in God. And so that, yeah, I mean, it's in God's hand at that point, but there's no point in, first of all, be safe. Don't use money that you don't have, that you can't afford to lose. That is just ridiculous. People saying that they lost their entire life savings of like $400,000 or millions of dollars that they've been saving up for the past 10 years, and it's all leveraged and now it's all gone. And I'm like, man, there's some hard lessons in there for some people, and just stack Bitcoin and HODL, man. And then you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about that. But you
Another,
said you
another
wanted to talk
prop.
about oh, there it is.
HODL. Can't get it all in there.
No, it was in there.
Yeah.
I saw it. You said you
So go
wanted to
ahead.
talk about jobs a little bit.
Yeah.
So
So let's do
you brought that
like
up.
kind of like a, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you brought that up this morning, and I was like, not quite sure where you wanted to go with it. So I'll let you take the reins on that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's just interesting, like my own personal journey, but also, just I see all kinds of people on X posting about, oh, I just quit my job. I can't remember what the name was, but he's talking about working out of prison. I don't know if he comes up on your feed. It's like .eth or something. Or no, X dot pub or something. I think it's a Bitcoin related thing. But he's like, oh, I just quit my job and I started working out of prison or something. And I mean, I guess it was something that they wanted to do. So yeah, so I think what I wrote down on my notes here was like, people quitting their jobs and going and doing things, that they're more passionate about. I think it's pretty interesting to see how the world has changed since 2020. I have a unique experience being a teacher before and after that event, and education obviously changed immensely. I was teaching in person. Then we went on spring break and we were all basically told, hey, guess what? Now you got to teach online, which was fine with me. I'm a computer nerd. That's great. Awesome. I don't have to leave my house. Okay, cool. But like, for people who've been teaching for 20 years already, that was something they were not able to, keep up with. They were like, I don't understand this. They're lucky if they can print, a document, let alone upload a class, a video file for a class. So, just kind of going through that, and seeing how the world has changed, and being in the job market in and out, since then, seeing just how many people, like when I applied, when I got out of private school and into the public school, when I was applying and going to places, man, it was like there was everything available because, a lot of older folks were like taking the opportunity. Okay, what's this global pandemic? All right, I'm going to retire now. So there was just a lot of open jobs. There was a lot of people just leaving, getting the heck out of Dodge and saying, you know what, this ain't worth it. I'm going to, sit and, count my money or watch the flowers grow or whatever it is they do. So I think in the last 5 years since then, We saw a whole just kind of revolution of, obviously AI has become incredibly powerful just in those 5 years. When I started teaching public school, one of my classes was digital music, which is something I'm incredibly passionate about. Let me just shameless plug for my other channel. I got this cool mug. So I've got my HODL Harmony on one side, and then I have my other channel on the other side, Durante's House of Music. And so let me just plug that real quick. I'm a musician. I play piano mostly, but I play basically anything with a string on it, guitar and all kinds of fun stuff. So like I said, I work on pianos and all that. So if you want to see, random videos, I haven't been going live a lot lately. I've been going through some stuff, trying to get my life together. So I've been just kind of stepping back, doing some shorts and things like that. But I work on pianos. I take some cool shorts and just kind of post up little videos. But I also go on and improvise and just play music and things like that, which I think is, something that we need more culture in the world, just more creative things for people to enjoy rather than just all the politics and all the hate and all the divisiveness and things like that. So that's kind of what I like to spread that as much as possible. So it's interesting seeing, coming back around, seeing all the things that are happening in the job markets and things like that. So a couple things I wrote down. Let's see. So I'm an investor, right? I invest in many things, but the most important thing I've ever invested in is me, the maestro, right? So when I went to school and I got, my bachelor's degree, that was an investment. Is it going to pay off? I'm not sure. I think at this point, hopefully. But like if you go to school and you get an English degree or something, the guarantee that that's going to pay for itself is not 100%. So the more that you can invest in yourself, the better off you're going to be. And that I would put under the category of active income as opposed to passive income. So, you're working your 9 to 5, that's active. You're trading your time for money. And what are they doing in DC? They are printing more money. So basically just robbing you without even moving a muscle, without even seeing you face to face, right? I think I would much prefer to be robbed face to face than not even seeing it if we're going to go that route. So investing in things, right? Like silver, stocks, I got into stocks, I got out of stocks, but I'm still in some. And everything for me comes back to Bitcoin mining. So I bought a couple of these. I have this little keychain from the Avalon series miners, and those are made by Canon. From on their website, they say they were the first people to invent the ASIC miner. So I'm going to take them at their word, but I really like their products. They make the Avalon series. They make the Avalon Mini and the Nano, which is about this big. I have a video of it unboxing on my channel. And that one, as opposed to the 1 terahash that you get with the Nano, you get 6. And so that's a little bit better of a chance. But the quality of their miners are so good. So talking about stocks, I got into their stocks maybe a month ago, and that's been a great investment. But continuing here on our journey, I went from precious metals to stocks to crypto. And so those are the passive, types of income. So you got to kind of split yourself between both. The more active income you make, you preserve it through your passive income. So you put it into things. You want your money to make money for you. I think that's something that I learned reading the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and all that, learning about Robert Kiyosaki. And that'll bring us to my document. So the most important thing that anyone can do is pay attention, right? It costs nothing, which is interesting. So what's something in your life that requires your attention?
Well, for me personally,
Yeah.
that acquires my attention. I mean, my wife.
Okay. And does your relationship get better with the more attention?
Absolutely.
All right. So that's kind of where I'm going. As a teacher, I don't like to just give the answers. I like to lead people to the answers. So the more the more attention you spend, which doesn't cost you anything, the better things get. All right. So when I started doing this, let me see if I can get this on the screen so people can see it. Okay. So what we're looking at here is a cash flow chart. I've made this. I have it linked. Hello. I have it linked on all my videos. And so if you go to my videos, you want a copy of this, you go in, there's a link. It's protected, but all you have to do is you copy it into your drive, and then you can print it, you can edit it, you can do whatever you want. So what I do is I print these. I made the whole document has 6. So that's 6 months. So basically what you're looking at up on the top, you have I for income. So any source of income that you have goes in that box. When I was working for the school, I put my school income there, and I put my piano income there. I also stream. I have music on Spotify. And so like about what you make on X, I make on Spotify just with my music, which is super cool. As a musician, I was like, holy crap, I feel like I've made it. And so a little bit of crypto, like anything, if I sell crypto, I put it in that box. Bitcoin mining, I was putting in that box. I can't read my own little, piano performance. I can't read my own handwriting. So you total up all your I's. Those go in the I box for income. And then underneath is E. Where am I at? There you go. So E stands for expenditures. So you put all your bills, your groceries, your mortgage, your car payment, your $10,000 loan, whatever, MISC things I buy on Amazon, credit card purchases, whatever you're spending money goes in that box. And then I subtract E from I, and whatever I have left over, that goes up here. And that's kind of like my spending cash. I minus E, and that's my spending cash. Some other things that I like to track are on the side here. I've got my credit score, and I've got my Bitcoin price. And those are things that I want to see, like, okay, well, I had, my net worth was $20,000 when Bitcoin was 70 or whatever. So like just tracking things over time. I have these going back in just a single sheet form. I would rip off like quarter sheets of paper. I did that for like 3 years before I was like, hey, what if I just put it all on a piece of paper? So yeah, I was just handwriting them for years, and I was like, let me just print this. And then I started doing the YouTube thing. I was like, well, let me share this with people because this is incredible. So the power of paying attention is priceless. You pay attention to something, you watch it grow. And so that right there, that's my superpower.
That's awesome. And it's wild because it's so simple. It's so simple, yet so many people do not do it. They don't keep track of their finances. They don't keep track of what they spend. They don't keep track of what they earn. And it turns out that most people spend a lot more than they think. It's kind of like when you're counting calories, like if you're trying to lose weight, if you actually count your calories, most people are way off in how many calories they eat, because 1 or 2 extra bites per meal can add up to an extra, 500 to 1,000 calories, depending on what you're eating. And so it's the same thing with investing. It's the same thing with saving. You need to know what money's coming in. You need to know what money's going out. And you need to know where your money's going that is not going out. If you're leaving that money sitting in a bank, okay, your money's losing value. We all know that. But
And it's
like
not
you said,
even there.
And it's not even there. Yeah, so you need to know where you're putting your money and what your money is doing. You want your money, you want to send out your money, and you want it to come home with some buddies, with some more money. And that's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah. Make your money make money for you. That's the whole passive income game. Yeah, but that is super critical. Just the simple act, even if, let's just say I don't even care what the numbers are, as long as I'm paying attention to them. That's the key. It's not about having an emotion about it, saying, oh, I need to make more money or I need to spend less money. It's just unemotional. I watch a lot of Star Trek. I love Star Trek. So, like the Data character or like the Spock character, who are unemotional, right? that's especially if you're using leverage and things like that. That's kind of the goal for leverage trading, is to be completely unemotional, have like, okay, little metrics that you watch and it hits this and it hits that. And I'm still learning that. I'm not good at that. But being unemotional about your finances, just saying, okay, look, I spent $3,000 on Amazon this month. Maybe I don't do that next month. Maybe I don't need, 6,000 toothpicks. I don't know. But yeah, so, people, like you said, and if, let's just say, okay, cool, I got a raise, right? A $10,000 raise. Oh, let me go buy stuff. Maybe not. Maybe you save that $10,000, because that's lifestyle inflation. It's like, as you get paid more, you spend more. Well, that's the key,
Yes.
is not doing that. So leaving, kind of circling back here to the leaving jobs and things like that and being happy. Um, I didn't realize it, but being in the school, just, I would wake up at 5 o'clock, which it's been a while since I've done that now. But I would wake up at 5 o'clock, get into school by 7, and I'd be there till 3, 4, sometimes 7 at night, sometimes 10 at night, depending. I was an orchestra director. So like I was there running concerts, I was doing all kinds of stuff, but typically, I'd be there from 7 to at least 3, and just, not doing anything else. That was it. So like not focusing on my business, not focusing on my house. My house is a disaster. I'm still trying to catch up with that. But it's just like all these other things were lacking because I was there giving my time for, looking back, people who didn't really appreciate my skills or, the investment of time that I was making and effort, kind of largely unnoticed. Not largely, but, by the people who really run the school, it was unnoticed. So getting to a place where I am my own boss, I am also my own bank. In the last 2 months that I've spent fully embracing being my own business, I have achieved a sense of freedom that is just unlike anything I've felt before. When I was in my 20s doing it, it was different. It was more like I'm struggling and this is hard and this sucks. But now I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. I can make my schedule however I want. I want to work 4 days a week. Great. I'm going to work 4 days a week, and I'm making more money now. I mean, I guess it's no surprise that, I'm making more money now than I was as a teacher. I guess teachers are traditionally underpaid. But between teaching and running my own business, I was making close to $80,000 a year, and so it's not like I was doing bad. But the biggest thing I've noticed in the last 2 months since being on my own and not having a full-time job, the biggest thing I've noticed when I was working that full-time job, I get paid every 2 weeks. I'd have a payday week. One paycheck would go straight to my mortgage. That's how our finances work these days. But thank God I have a mortgage. I'd rather have a mortgage than pay rent. But anyway, one payment goes straight to the mortgage, and then I'd have no money for 2 weeks until I got paid again. And, of course I was doing some piano work and things like that, but not enough. And the biggest thing I've noticed in the last couple months is I went from feast or famine to now I'm just kind of like maintaining. I've got money in my bank account. I've got, a little bit of surplus. And I thought I was doing good. I thought I was doing great, trading my time for money. But it turns out being your own boss is way better. Way better.
Yeah, that's one thing that Bitcoin has taught me too. You almost become almost one of the worst employees because once you have Bitcoin, you realize that you are trading your time for money, and that money is being stolen via the money printer, and they're just printing more of it. So you're like, well, they're stealing my time essentially. And so yes, being your own boss is absolutely phenomenal. Um I haven't had a full W-2 job in probably 2 years now. So it's been fun. It's been interesting. I love it. And it's definitely something that I found with the Bitcoin journey as well, because going to a job that it feels soulless once once you're on a Bitcoin standard per se. It's really difficult. I completely agree with you.
Absolutely. Let me see. Was there anything else I had written down? I like to talk if you haven't noticed.
Um, no,
Let's
dude,
see.
I love it. Did you want to talk about the cycles and where you think things are going? Anything like that?
Yeah. From what my research is telling me, now I like to watch, a lot of different YouTubers that are, maybe not like the most popular people, but the ones who really get down to the nitty gritty, and the ones who base their stuff on the chain. There's one specifically on chain analysis, I think is the name of the channel. And they were actually, you were asking me about MicroStrategy and things like that. And yeah, the last episode I think was all about that and how, just how it's been performing and all that kind of stuff. But in general, based on stuff on the blockchain, the metrics on the blockchain, not like, oh, head and shoulders pattern this or ascending wedge or whatever type of technical analysis you can do on the chart. I prefer to look at the chains and see what's happening on the chain. And just a little aside, one of my new approach to what I've been doing, like I said, I've been stepping back from I used to just go live and just talk about what was happening that day, but I was just like, I'm talking about the same thing. It was like 3 months. I was like, it's the same. It's literally the same as yesterday. We're good. Rinse and repeat. So I was just like, all right, I'm kind of burning out. I was doing that almost every day. And I was just like, it was fun. I was learning how to broadcast and how to record and things like that. So it was a great skill. And I just kind of got addicted to it. So I was like, all right, let me go online. And I was just like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. So let me just kind of take a step back here. So what I've been doing the last couple of months, let me see if I can pull this up here. Like I said, I like to look at the chains. And so I've been putting up a live stream. One of my followers sent me a video of like a chain, basically the Bitcoin chart, and it had like trading signals, and it had like a whole bunch of little bells and whistles that would go off when a different trade, as the trading book happened, okay, this order came in, and that sort of stuff. And so I was like, okay, so this video is going on 24/7. So how does that work? And so I don't know if I'm able to pull this up. My phone's acting weird. But anyway, so I'm super into Bitcoin and Cardano. So I put the Bitcoin Bitcoin chart and the Cardano chart, and then underneath I put the Bitcoin blockchain and the Cardano blockchain, and just kind of literally just watching them happen. Instead of me talking about what's happening, it's just, here, this is what's happening. And I think it just started. I hear my music. And music is a big thing for me. So it's like in all of my live videos, I would always have just a background music going. I'm on this AI music thing. And so I was able to make a whole bunch of just music, AI music, and it sounds great, and people enjoy it. So I actually took that and put it in the background of my video. So there, I don't know how well you can see this, but we got Bitcoin, Cardano, and then the Bitcoin blockchain. And that, just fun little fact, that is a screen from my own personal node. So that's not just the Bitcoin blockchain, that's my Bitcoin blockchain. And then this is the Cardano blockchain, just kind of watching what's happening. So I've been letting that go 24 hours a day. I have another computer that just runs that stream. And it's been doing pretty good. I'm actually, I don't know, are you on Rumble at all? Or are you just doing the YouTube? I think we talked about this. I can't remember.
No, I'm on Rumble a tiny bit. I post some videos there, but I'm really not on Rumble that often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
I've been
post
doing
my
both.
videos on
Yeah, I've been doing both. I use Rumble Studio, and I can actually simulcast to YouTube and Rumble, and then it posts them to both places. And that, I get a certain amount of traction on YouTube, but that specific video, and I've been doing it, I have technical issues occasionally, so I'll have to like take it down and redo it or whatever. But over the last month or so, that video has been getting a whole lot of traction on Rumble, a lot more than it is on YouTube. I'm not sure what or why. But yeah, so this cycle, getting back to what we were talking about, this cycle has been interesting. It's been frustrating. It's been exciting. All the adjectives that could possibly be. I think in January, when after November and December we had the nice euphoria and things like that. It was like, ooh, this is going to be the greatest year. We've been waiting for this for 4 years, and that's kind of been my attitude. Is just like, I've been working for this moment for 4 years. Here we are. We finally got here, and it's just been a dud. It feels like it's been a dud. Although we're at all-time highs, and it's just, although we're at all-time highs, nobody's talking about it. It's really rare if you meet somebody on the street who's talking about Bitcoin, and that right there is really key to just how early we are. I kick myself for not being in Bitcoin in 2009 or 2010 because I was out of college. I was in college, but I was an adult. I had a computer. There was no reason I was not into Bitcoin way earlier than this. But things happen for a reason. They happen when they're supposed to happen. So it's like, yeah, I wish I could have bought Bitcoin at $1, but would I have sold it at $10,000? Would I have sold it at 8,000? Or who knows? Maybe there's a universe. I like to believe, in the multiverse theory. So it's like, whatever potentiality there is, there's a universe where that is true. So like, okay, maybe there is a universe where I bought Bitcoin at $1, but that's not this universe. So, it's just, you're on your journey, you're doing what you're doing. Just make a decision. And this goes back to my just kind of life journey. It's like, you pick a direction and you go into it. And you can change directions at any point. But as long as, there's so many people who are like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, especially in college. You're like, oh, I don't know what I want to major in and blah, blah, blah. You just pick a direction and you start going in that direction. And if it doesn't feel right, change the direction. It's not a big deal. You're in control.
Absolutely. I've changed directions I don't know how many times since college. When I went into college, I wanted to be a cop. And when I came out of college, I did not want to be a cop anymore. And so that, things change very quickly. Dude, I have appreciated you. This has been a lot of fun. Do you want to shill your YouTube channel, where you're posting and what you're doing exactly again, so people can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So I'm on X, of course. I've got HODL Harmony on X. Like I said, I'm trying to get going on that and get monetized as I can. But my main focuses are on YouTube. So I've got HODL Harmony on YouTube. And like I said, I got that 24-hour video. So if you want some chill music and you just want to watch the charts, I just have it on an hourly chart. And so just chill, enjoy some music. And occasionally you might catch me going live. I think I'll be doing more of that and just talking about topical news as we start getting more stories to talk about. And then, of course, my music channel. So those are the two that I focus on. So Durante's House of Music, and then HODL Harmony on YouTube. And it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for coming on, ladies and gentlemen. HODL Harmony. This was fun. I've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you have not. Check out his YouTube channel as well. And we will catch you guys next time.